After all these episodes, I've only scratched the surface of what's really in that collection. We've talked about classic rock, and we've done some comedy. But there are other genres as well, and I'm sure many of you are saying, "Hey Bernie, what about country?" Well, I'm sure this is going to be a bit controversial, but I've never been too sure about all that twanging and y'all, if you know what I mean. But I did take a walk down a country road. So if you want to hear those stories, then let's drop the needle. Like most kids growing up in the 50s, I enjoyed playing cowboys and Indians. And I loved watching Zorro on TV and Spin' Marty on the original Mickey Mouse Club. And Roy Rogers was my cowboy hero. Didn't really care much for his singing with the Sons of Pioneer, but boy, when he got on Trigger and went for a ride, I was all there. And I still have the cowboy boots that I got when I was 10 years old on a vacation to Colorado. Pretty cool, huh? My mom wasn't much into country music either, but she did like Johnny Cash, so she played him a lot. Sure, I had heard Ringo sing Act Naturally on the infamous Yesterday and Today Beatles album. And then I found out that it was actually written by Buck Owens of Hee Haw fame. But you know, I liked Ringo's version better. I had all of the Byrds albums, and I liked them. But after David Crosby left, you know, they just weren't as good. And this was driven home to me when they released Sweetheart of the Rodeo. Now I know this is heresy to a lot of people, because many people love this album, but I just couldn't get into it. Sure, I like the lead-off song, You Ain't Going Nowhere, but naturally, that was written by Bob Dylan. But I couldn't really get into the rest of the album. Now I tried. I learned that Roger McGuinn had hired some guy named Graham Parsons to join the Byrds, and Graham was the leading force of Sweetheart. Then he left the Byrds and teamed up with Chris Hillman, the bassist of the Byrds, and they formed a new group called the Flying Burrito Brothers. Their first album was Gilded Palace of Sin. And again, I really tried to like it. Sin City, Do Right Woman with high harmony from an uncredited David Crosby, and Dark End of the Streets are all good tracks. But I actually enjoyed the photograph of them in their nudie cowboy suits on the back cover than I did the album. But country music just wasn't my thing. I didn't like Merle Haggard. Didn't like what was called the Bakersfield sound, nor the Nashville sound. But I do like country rock, and I know some of you are saying, well, hang on, that's what Sweetheart of the Rodeo is. Yeah, maybe it is, but give me Jackson Browne, or the Eagles, or Poco, and those are stories for another day. L.A. with the Sunset Strip, Buffalo Springfield, Love, The Doors, and you had San Francisco with the Grateful Dead, Jefferson Airplane, Moby Grape, Quicksilver Messenger Service. Yes, this was my kind of music scene. So it was a big cultural shock when I took a new job, uprooted the family from Southern California, and moved to Knoxville, Tennessee. When we first got there, we couldn't understand what people were saying because of their thick Southern drawl. And when you'd turn on the radio station, all you could find was country music. I went to work for a company in East Tennessee called iPix. And what iPix did is they would take a still camera and they would put a 180-degree fisheye lens on it, take one picture, then rotate the camera and take another picture. And then they had the software to stitch those two images together, so when you looked at it in the computer, you could take your mouse and you could look all the way around in 360 degrees. When I first heard about the technology, I said to them, if you guys ever figure out a way to do that with moving pictures, I'm your guy. And so they did. And I went to work for them creating 360-degree immersive movies all over the world. We actually had a system where you could have your computer connected to a headset which had screens on it so you could move around the 360 degrees. Way ahead of the time and very, very cool. And yeah, I shot immersive movies all over the world. The UK, Berlin, the Bahamas, and even the Middle East. But let's go back to country music. Fanfare was a big deal in Nashville. All the country acts would convene on a convention center and they would set up little tables and fans could come in and meet them. So we decided this would be a cool thing that iPix could shoot and put on various country acts' websites. So we reached out to Brooks and Dunn. I met them at their studio, and they were both super nice, and they showed me around their collection of guitars and all of the merchandise that they had. But then it's time for Fanfare, and they suggest I ride in the limo with them, and that's cool. So I get in the limo, and I'm seated right between Kix and Ronnie. And as we drive up to the convention center, there's tons of people out there. Kix says, "I'll go first, then Bernie, you come out, and then Ronnie, you come last." And so we pull up, the limo door opens, Kix jumps out, all the fans start taking pictures, flashbulbs going everywhere, and they're yelling his name. And then Ronnie goes, "Okay, Bernie, you go." And I jump out, and again, all the flashes go off, but people aren't yelling my name because they don't know who I am. And then Ronnie jumps out, flashes, 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 and everybody yelling Ronnie's name. I laugh about it when I wonder if people looked at those pictures and went, who is that guy riding with Brooks and Dunn? My second country music experience is with the Dixie Chicks. Their album Fly had just come out. And iPix had got to them and said, let us do a 360-degree movie that we can put on your website. And they were all for it. So the first thing we had to do is go down to Texas so that we could watch one of their concerts so we could figure out how we were going to shoot this in 360 degrees. We had an all-access pass, so we were allowed backstage, we were allowed everywhere. Even got to meet the group. When the concert started, the curtain was designed to look like a fly, like a zipper on a pair of pants, which would actually open to unveil the group. As this zipper was slowly coming down, they were playing Lenny Kravitz's I Want to Fly Away. And then the zipper dropped, and there were the Dixie Chicks. I was standing exactly at the edge of the stage, front row center. It was terrific. The Chicks tore down the house and absolutely blew me away. So when we got to Detroit, my job was to determine where we're going to place the cameras to capture all of that energy that we had seen in Texas. We had multiple cameras, video and film. And actually, this is one of the video cameras. It would have had a 180-degree lens put on the front of it. And we would use these on the stage. We'd put them behind the drummer so you could look out, you could see the girls, and then you'd see the audience in front of them. Now, our film cameras were pretty large. And on the front of them, we had a 360-degree lens so we could see everywhere. We put one of those on a mic stand, so when the three girls came up to sing, we could look and see all of them at the same time. Now, at one point during the concert, Emily would disappear from the stage, and a stagehand would have a little cart, and he would quickly drive her to the other side of the arena. But then she would just magically appear on the other side of the arena on a little stage there and start playing from there. One of our cameramen carrying these big film cameras had to jump down off the stage and go racing behind Emily so that when she appeared on that stage out on the other side of the arena and the fans are all going wild around her, he was right there to capture it all in 360 degrees. It was stunning. After the concert, we had all this videotape and film canisters that we needed to get from Detroit to Los Angeles where I would edit it. But I wanted to stop at Knoxville first and then go on to Los Angeles. So I go into the Detroit airport. Now this is way before 9/11, but they did have x-ray machines. And so I go into the airport and we're going to go up to the x-ray and the guy says, I need to x-ray those packages, which was obviously the videotape and film. And I said, you can't do that. I says, because the x-ray will expose the film and destroy everything. And so he goes, okay, well then let me just open the canisters and take a look at them. And I said, no, you can't do that either because the light will expose the film and destroy it. Now, interestingly enough, he just had to take my word for it because they could not x-ray the film. And so they didn't. And I got on the plane and I flew to Knoxville. So I walked up to the agent there by the x-ray machine and I said, look, Now here's my problem. I'm going to go home. I live here in Knoxville. I'm going to go home, pick up a new bag of clothes, and come back and fly to Los Angeles in about an hour. And I said, but I don't want to risk leaving with this film and then coming back and having you guys go, oh, no, we got to x-ray it. Now, this would not happen today. He looked at me and he said, that's no problem. Just leave the bag here with me. I'll keep an eye on it. No one will touch it. Then when you come back, you go through x-ray, and then you can pick it up. And that's exactly what happened. The Dixie Chicks had a lot to deal with later. At a concert in England, as the Iraq War was just starting, Natalie said she was ashamed that the president came from Texas. Yeah, howdy, the backlash was quick and fierce. All of a sudden, the Chicks were banned from country radio. All of a sudden, they started getting death threats. It got really, really ugly. But you know what? They never backed down. But the band preserved and released Taking the Long Way album, which contains the unapologetic Not Ready to Make Nice. And now, of course, the band has dropped Dixie from their name and are just the Chicks. And as I record this, they have released a new album called Gaslighting. Now, of course, living in Knoxville, Tennessee, I have to have a story about East Tennessee's favorite daughter. And yes, I mean Dolly Parton. When we first arrived in Knoxville, we were told there was a theme park not far from our house up in the Smoky Mountains. One of my friends described it as sort of a hillbilly Disney World. It was owned by Dolly Parton, and it was called Dollywood. Now, when I heard about Dollywood, I thought it would be pretty hokey. But we did take the kids up there, and we had a good time. My job required me to fly out of the Knoxville airport a lot, and usually I would take one of the first flights out in the morning, which departed around 6 a.m. So one morning I arrived at the airport for that early morning flight, and as usual, the airport was pretty deserted. When I walked down to the gate, there was just a handful of people there, but there were two women who caught my eye because they were so different. One woman was dressed casually in jeans and a shirt. The other woman was dressed to the nines. Just then, the agent called the flight to Atlanta, and the casually dressed woman went over, said goodbye to her friend, gave her a kiss, and left the airport. Yeah, before 9/11, your friends could actually see you off at the gate. So when we lined up to board, I end up standing next to the well-dressed woman. And I looked over at her, and I recognized her. And I said, well, good morning, Dolly. And she looked at me and just lit up like a Christmas tree, flashed a great big smile and went, why, good morning, darling. How are you? And then we boarded the plane. Well, since I was a frequent flyer, I sat down in first class, and I expected Dolly to do the same, but no, she didn't. She walked down into the coach section. She was flying by herself. No entourage, just Dolly Parton. One last story about Knoxville, Tennessee and country music. While I was there, I worked for Philips Electronics. We hired an outside marketing consultant to help us with our marketing endeavors. And she gave birth to a baby girl. So when she first brought the infant in to show us, we nicknamed the baby girl the Teeny Tiny Ballerini. And yeah, you can probably guess where that goes. That baby girl is Kelsea Ballerini, who's now gone on to worldwide fame and is a member of the Grand Ole Opry. If you liked this episode, hit the like button, and you can also leave me a comment down below, and I'll respond to you. If you subscribe, we'll let you know when future episodes come out. Most of the albums that I talk about can be found at your local vinyl store or on eBay. Individual songs most likely are on Spotify, Apple Music, or Amazon Music, or even some on YouTube.